Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our board meeting. Can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amanda, will you call the roll?
Trustee Messick?
Here.
Trustee Rocco?
Here.
Trustee Sheehan?
Here.
Trustee Casera?
Here.
Trustee Zora is absent. Trustee Lautner?
Here.
President DeCipio?
Here.
Quorum is present, sir.
Thank you, Amanda. Next, we're going to move on to public participation of agenda-related items only. If anyone would care to address the board, please step up to the mic, give us your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes. Try not to be redundant. We had a meeting 2 weeks ago, so if you have something new to add, that would be great.
I'm Cheryl Peterson from 1021 Newberry. The village initially put the parking restriction in place for the safety and well-being of the residents. Lifting the restriction implies that the village no longer has the safety and well-being of its residents in mind. The Y has a maximum of 207 people. There is a fact that there is 65 parking spaces located around the proximity of the Y that has permitted use for approximately 2 hours or greater. These spaces should be shared by all businesses. Allowing one business or one resident to monopolize all parking spaces or an entire neighborhood is totally unacceptable. A fact, in 2007, we found that the YMCA was classified as a Class G business district pursuant to Section 153.040 of the Grange Park Code. The YMCA is not an allowable permitted use. Furthermore, when initially opening, the YMCA violated the automobile parking requirements enumerated in Section 153.040C of the code. After we discovered and disclosed this information to the YMCA, they subsequently began renting parking space from the National City Bank. This agreement was enforced through December 2007. Currently, they do not have access to the space. Fact, the YMCA violated Section 153.016 of the Grange Park Code when they occupied and changed the use of the building without the proper permits required by the village's building commissioner. Fact, the Y signed a lease, I don't know when, extending through 2019. If they were not pleased with the current arrangement of the parking, then they should not have extended their lease. Since they are happy with this situation, I believe that the current resident parking restriction should also be the same. Fact, the Y is in business to recruit new members and to add new programs. They have the potential of hundreds of people coming to use their facility. All other Ys have plenty of on-site parking for their patrons. Regarding the safety issue of those crossing 31st Street, I'm telling you, people, it's very easy to go to the corner of Kemen and 31st Street, push the walk button, and cross the street very safely. I've done it numerous times, and in fact, all of us, I'm sure, cross the street when we go visit our restaurants and shops in LaGrange, crossing LaGrange Road. Again, the manner we believe we have been aggrieved and hard by the business, our safety, the safety of our kids, the delay of emergency vehicles, increased non-residents' presence in a residential area, compromising the established businesses' revenue due to lack of available parking for local customers, injurious to property values due to the non-quiet residential environment created by the traffic, noise, and congestion and pedestrians.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Joe Peterson, also of 1021 Newberry, and this will be a continuation of what Cheryl was not able to finish. Detrimental to any immediate or future investments or improvements and expansions, collectively, the value of the 16 homes in this block is greater than $4 million. Contributed to the decline in general welfare, health, safety, and morals of the neighborhood and the community. The issue that 40% of the Y patrons are LaGrange Park residents, therefore they should be allowed to park on Newberry is interesting. A large percentage of Nazareth students are LaGrange Park residents and should be allowed to park on streets close to the campus. A large percentage of commuters are LaGrange Park residents and therefore should be allowed to park on streets in close proximity to the commuter station. Cheryl went to the businesses on 31st Street corridor. None said that the Y has a positive influence on the area. No one from the Y does business with any of these shops. Many are annoyed that the Y parks on private parking, and many are annoyed that the Y monopolizes available parking spaces that the businesses could use. Some of the Century 21 and Cabinets by Design feel that lifting the restriction on Newberry is the answer to their parking spaces that used to be used for their businesses. Even if the restriction is lifted, these prime business spaces will still be occupied by Y patrons due to the close proximity to their building. As for police taking time to write the parking tickets for police violations, or for parking violations, if Y patrons would read and heed and obey the signs, there would be no need for police involvement. Have the Y put a note on their door with a gentle reminder to our patrons to avoid parking during the restricted times. The school year is starting, and Newberry is a bus route. At least 3 buses use our street during the morning to rush to carry students to school. At least 3 buses use the street during the afternoon hours and return students to their homes. This increase in the traffic and congestion poses a safety issue for students walking to and from the bus stop. Visibility at the corner stop makes it hard to visualize pedestrians when cars are parked near the intersections of Newberry and Garfield. Frequently, cars do not stop at the stop sign in the north or south directions. Have any of the trustees come to the neighborhood to observe these issues or reviewed the aforementioned codes for the village of LaGrange Park? Wouldn't you think it'd be prudent to get all the facts from everyone before voting on this issue?
30 seconds.
This is an issue that will affect the health and safety of all 16 families living in the area. As I had said several weeks ago, we've been longtime residents of LaGrange Park and have supported our village many, many different ways. And we're hoping that the village board will heed and also listen to what we have to say and hopefully keep the restrictions as
Time.
they are. Thank you.
Hi, Donna Wilder. I also live at 1017 Newberry in LaGrange Park, mom of 4 kids. And I'd like to take this opportunity to present some safety data involving motor vehicle accidents and children. 2,400 children each year, or approximately 50 kids each week, are injured after being struck or run over by a car backing out of a driveway. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, 2 children will die each and every week from these injuries. All told, back-over accidents account for 42% of all non-traffic related auto fatalities involving children each year. Run-over accidents, another 22%. We all know that vehicles have blind zones. Every car has areas in the front and back that cannot be seen from the driver's seat. Blind zones in the front of the car can extend 6 to 8 feet wide and be as wide as the car itself. Blind zones in the back can be even longer, 7 to 8 feet wide and match as much as 20 to 40 feet long. The higher off the ground the driver's seat sits and the bigger the car, the larger the vehicle blind spot zones. In driver's ed, we were taught to slowly reverse our car out of a driveway. Yet we've seen YMCA patrons whip in and out of our driveways at record speeds. We have enough cars speeding down Newberry to avoid the red light at Kemen, or better yet, a freight train. We don't need them backing out of our driveways too. To date, to my knowledge, no data has been presented to suggest lifting this parking ban will make it safer for the patrons crossing 31st Street while en route to the YMCA. Yet the data from the National Highway Safety Traffic Administration presented here tonight increases the volume of traffic and number of cars parked on the street, may increase the injuries to our children. I see no reason to conduct a 12-month parking traffic study to evaluate the impact of removing these signs. A carefully planned study needs an objective, a methodology for measuring endpoints, and the data must be monitored while it's being captured. Has such a study been written, and has it been reviewed by the Board of Trustees? Do we need to fund
30
a study
seconds.
when we can predict the outcome? The parking ban was granted initially because the residents successfully convinced this board of its inherent value. Nothing has changed to suggest it is no longer needed. Please do not lift this parking ban. I presented data to suggest doing so may jeopardize the safety of the very residents you protect. Does the risk outweigh the benefits of a few extra parking spots, which can cause significant congestion to both the residents and the patrons of the Y?
Time.
Should we put someone at harm's way if it's more convenient for a patron to park closer to the entrance? There's no need to lift this ban.
Thank you, Donna. Anyone else care to address the board? Okay, moving on.
Dave Sicharko, 1012 Newberry. Board members, President DeCipio, I want you to picture your block. If you honestly can say you want your block to be a parking lot for a business, then go ahead and lift the restrictions. A business that obviously doesn't mind the parking restrictions because they just signed a lease. So they, by doing that, must not mind the current state. If you do lift the restrictions, then please we should remove the restrictions for all LaGrange Park commuters, for the train, and for Nazareth. That would only be fair. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Bill Lampert, 1000 Newberry Avenue. I'm here to speak on behalf of encouraging the village board to maintain the current parking restrictions on Newberry Avenue. While I wanted to thank President DeCipio, the Board of Trustees, and the village staff, while they were instrumental in helping the residents and the neighbors on Newberry Avenue in 2007 when the YMCA moved into our neighborhood, you saw the unique situation that we were under and the unique situation that the YMCA poses to our neighborhood based on its extended hours of operation, large volume of patrons and vehicles, and the lack of parking. This business makes this situation makes it very unique to compare the YMCA to any other business or school or organization within the village. So it does, in my opinion, necessitate a unique solution to address needs of the residents and of the neighborhood. There are two issues that the village board or that staff has put in front of the village board that needs to be addressed. One is the safety issue of patrons needing to cross 31st Street, as one of my neighbors has already mentioned. In fact, in 2007, when the YMCA came in, the village staff worked with the Cook County Traffic Organization. Sorry, I don't know the name of the entity, but extending the crossing traffic time at the light at Newberry and Kemen, or sorry, at 31st and Kemen. So the timer was extended so folks with young kids or strollers could use that light and cross at a controlled intersection. Also, the village acquired the house on Beach Avenue on the alley and turned it into a parking lot. In my estimation, and I'm not sure if village staff has done any investigation, it's a very underutilized parking lot, which is closer to the YMCA and would alleviate or eliminate any patrons having to cross 31st Street if they were to use that parking lot. And I would encourage the YMCA to mention that to their patrons. The other issue that the village staff has brought up is about call volume. We did have a lot of calls before the parking restrictions went in the 2 or 3 months after the YMCA moved in, and I would suspect that by lifting the restrictions that the call volume in that area would not be reduced. I would in fact surmise that it may be increased because people will encroach upon parkways and park in front of the fire hydrant as they did before.
30 seconds.
So in closing, again, I would just encourage the village board to further evaluate this situation, and again, in my recommendation, please maintain the parking restrictions on Newberry Avenue as is. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Good evening. My name is Carmen Casas. I'm at 1004 Newberry. You have a very difficult decision to make, and I think I understand that. The difficulty is prioritizing the residents that have come before you to share their feelings, their emotions, because they're tied to this community. I understand you also have to support economic development within our village. But at the same time, you have to have a balancing act as to how you're going to prioritize the needs of this village. So I know that I asked for data from Julie, and I appreciate Julie providing that along with the chief of police on my request. And her response was quick, so I appreciate your response to all my inquiries. As I was reviewing the data and I was contemplating and sharing some thoughts and hearing what my friends and neighbors had shared before and are sharing before you today, I focused more on a solution to what I think is the inevitable decision you may need to make. So I shared with you via Julie one of the recommendations that I thought may be prudent, thoughtful. In the city of Chicago, they have the meter maids who respond to issuing tickets for parking violations. So I would encourage you, if you're going to side with taking the vote to lift restrictions, that you consider some of the community members who stand here before you today to, and I'm using this word only informally, deputize or sanction the neighbors to issue tickets to assist in the phone calls that you referenced at the last meeting and through the data that are of large volume, and it takes from the police response. So we're reaching out to you, as shared before, that we can also do a part. And how do you engage community to be part of the solution if the decision is to vote against the parking? So the revenue that is obtained from issuing the violations can be a chosen entity, a different institution, not necessarily police, but the school or a different institution within the village. So thank you very much for allowing me to share, and hope the decision is in our favor.
Thank you, Carmen.
Dave Metter, 1005 Newberry. I just wanted to talk about the village, how they're accommodating the YMCA, that business particular. Other businesses on 31st Street, there seems to be active accommodating this business. I just have questions about it. I also have questions about the Traffic and Safety Committee, that it was a closed meeting. Prior public announcement for any input from the public. I feel that we're putting the patrons over the property owners of. Also, the YMCA brings in no sales tax. Parking prior. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, moving on. Amanda, consent agenda, please.
The items on this evening's consent agenda are as follows. A, approval of minutes, Village Board meeting, July 28th, 2015. Work session meeting, August 11th, 2015. Work session, executive session, August 11th, 2015. B, action 2015-16 tree trimming program. Motion to extend the 2014-15 tree trimming contract with Winkler Tree Service for an additional year. And 2, to authorize the village president to execute the necessary contract documents. C, action motion to authorize the president and chairperson of the Finance Committee to sign the register for bills and authorize the treasurer and village clerk to sign checks and payment of operating bills and salaries as itemized in the check registers. D, action motion to authorize the village treasurer and village clerk to sign checks in the payment of payroll and other bills that become due between this date and September 22nd, 2015, with subsequent approval of the payroll register and voucher register by the Board of Trustees at its regular meeting to be held on September 22nd, 2015.
Thank you, Amanda. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Amanda, call the roll.
Trustee Messick?
Yes.
Trustee Rocco?
Yes.
Trustee Sheehan?
Yes.
Trustee Casera?
Yes.
Trustee Lochner?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Amanda. Next up is Village Manager Report. Julia?
Thank you, Mr. President. I have 2 items to report this evening, neither of which are included in your agenda packet for tonight. The first item is regarding the 4th annual Haunted Trolley Halloween event that is hosted by the Grange Park Chamber of Commerce. There should be a letter from the chamber up at your place settings this evening. The chamber is requesting that the village sponsor this event at the amount of $1,000. The village has been in conversation with the Community Park District regarding our mutual support of this event, and generally speaking, the thought is that this event is one that is enjoyed by many community members, both folks in our community and outside of our community. I believe there were over 600 people that participated in the event last year. This is an event that does have its history with the village. We shared the idea together with the chamber a few years back in putting the event together, and we've always had some sort of a role in the event. In our conversations with the Community Park District, both while we have agreed that we would each speak to our village boards and with the Park District, the Park Board, regarding supporting this event, we both felt that we would bring this to our boards and convey that we feel that this is an event that is worth supporting. For the village, it's something that is worthwhile as it promotes the commerce that takes place in our community, the connection between the residents and our businesses, and it supports the chamber. And for the Park District, supporting the trolleys would allow transport to the Park District's event, which also takes place that evening with the Haunted Trolley Halloween event. So in the coming days, we will continue our discussions with the Park District and both of us supporting this event. And at this point, I was looking for any feedback that the board may have with regard to sponsoring or supporting this event in any way. Certainly, we haven't made any decisions. We will continue the conversation with the Park District. But if the board has any feedback for staff in moving forward, we would certainly welcome that.
Sure. Thank you, Julie, and thank you for bringing this before the board. The chamber has been good to LaGrange Park, and Ms. President, Sherry, you've done great things for us, and I do support the amount and the donation, if my fellow board members do. The question is this going to be taken out of where, and is it going to be a budgeted item? I mean, is this a one-time, or were you planning on supporting the event in the future with the chamber? And that's something we should think about. We do support the chamber in other avenues, but I still think that this is a activity that our children in the community take part in, and I'm in full support. And I think we'll just go down the line then. And Trustee Lautner, your comments?
Before you do that, we can't take a vote on this because it was not on the agenda. So we don't want people to express opinions in a way that suggests a vote. That's my only point.
Okay. No, thank you. I don't want to vote. Trustee Lautner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would certainly concur with some of your, well, I'm going to say the majority of your comments. I think they've been, great citizens, contributed a lot to the village. It's involved a lot of people from our community. I've personally participated along with my family and look forward to that event coming up this year.
Trustee Sheehan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would support the amount. Sherry does a great job, the chamber does a great job, and looking at the list of members, there's a lot of energy there, and it's good for the village. It'd be a great event. I just have one question. It's for the 4 years. Have we made donations before every year, or is this going to be?
Well, this is the 4th annual,
Right.
and previously our support was limited to staff time and organizing the event. We have not previously supported this event, although I will tell you that for the past 4 or 5 years, the village has hosted their monthly meeting here at Village Hall.
Sure.
And we have supported that, hosting that meeting in this room. We no longer do that, and that's because the chamber wants to get out into the community and involve other folks in the community at those business meetings. So we have had an active role in supporting a lot of their activities. But this is the first time we have been asked to support a specific event.
Thank you.
Trustee Rocco?
I think it's a great event. I think it's a great event. I think the Chamber of Commerce is great in our community. In the past, it seems like the village and the Chamber of Commerce has had a great partnership. They do great things, and I think it's good that we support them, our local businesses. And I know, years past we did other events, that summer event that we no longer do. This is some way that we can still give back to our community, along with giving, supporting the Chamber of Commerce, because as you said, it's many of the residents, 600 residents participated last year, or people attended. Probably the majority of them were residents. So I would support us being sponsoring this.
Thank you, Trustee Rocco. Trustee Messick?
Thank you, Mr. President. To not be redundant, I concur mostly with my fellow trustees and you. I just say that the chamber has been a benefit to this village. The village benefits from the chamber benefits from the village. It's all about cooperation and communication, and the residents as well. So on that end, I think it sounds like a very good idea.
Thank you, Trustee Messick. Trustee Kucera?
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, not to be redundant, I guess I'm the last person in the line here. But it has been a great event. The chamber has been very supportive. I think a piece that's really kind of exciting is in the last couple of years, particularly last month, we had the National Night Out, which had great participation. The Park District's piece with Santa over at the Park District building, tree lighting. Another event we can see 3 generations of people that live in the community out having a good time, I think is great for all, especially the community. So, yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll take all of this feedback back as we continue to talk
Great.
with the Community Park District on this issue. I have a second item to report, and that is, can you hear me? How about now? Can you hear me okay?
Perfect.
All right, I just want to make sure that it's being recorded. The second item I have for this evening is to introduce someone, and someone that is important for LaGrange Park and is busy working for us and 2 other communities, and that person is Kimberly Knutson. Kimberly, if you would stand up very briefly. Kim Knutson is the Executive Director of LTAC, the Lyons Township Area Communications Center, which will be the consolidated dispatch center for the villages of LaGrange Park, LaGrange, and Western Springs. And Kimberly has been working with the 3 communities since June 1st, and she has been working very actively with the chiefs in the 3 communities and the village managers. And we wanted to have an opportunity to introduce her to the board so that you had a face to the name. And she wanted to be here this evening to get to know all of you. So we're pleased to have her here. And I would like to, if I could, Mr. President, just briefly turn the microphone over to the 2 chiefs if they would like to say anything
Sure,
about their
absolutely.
interaction and working with Kimberly. I'll first turn it over to Chief Rampa and then to Chief Magus.
We are lucky to have Kim on board. Kim comes to us from 2 different backgrounds of law enforcement. She worked for the village of Bolingbrook, and then she worked for the village of Romeoville. in both capacities, she was either a co-director or actual director for what that was about. Coming into this aspect, the chiefs put a lot of time and effort, and so did the villages, in getting the right person for the job, and we did that. She's done nothing from day one, running from start to go. She wants everything to happen tomorrow, and we appreciate that. She has very good eagerness. She has very good knowledge. She's very pleasant to work for. She will be a good guide for us, and she will come forward and educate us more as she gets all the data that's needed, and then give us more as we go forward. But Kim, you're a joy, and I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, I just want to echo Chief Rampa's comments. So far, it's been an extreme pleasure to work with her. She's very knowledgeable in what we're trying to accomplish, and her organizational skills so far have been excellent. She constantly sends us stuff that we need to make decisions on, or talk about, setting up meetings, setting up, to look at equipment, to make decisions, to talk about issues that we really need to spend time talking on. There are an enormous amount of decisions and work to be done, and I'm sure some of those will come before the board in the future, as far as decisions that especially affect finances related to the project. But so far, it's been a pleasure to work with Kim, and she's very good at what she does.
Thank you, Chiefs. Again, welcome, Kimberly. We're glad to have you at our meeting this evening, and that's all I have to report, unless if you have any comments.
I just have a couple comments. For those of may not be familiar, we've gone into an agreement with Western Springs and Grange into joint dispatch services. And through that process, it was evaluated that we needed a director, an executive director, to really oversee the operations. And the chiefs and the chiefs from the neighboring communities of Western Springs and LaGrange have done a great job in triaging, and there was no argument that Kim was the best selection and the best candidate. So we look forward to working with you, Kim, and I understand, as we had talked, that you will be presenting to the board in the future your ideas and where we're going and where we're headed, and we look forward to that, because this is a big venture for our community to go down this path, and we were fortunate to have you on board. Do you want to make any comments tonight? I knew I could talk you into it.
Okay.
I think we're good.
Okay. Well, the Chiefs, President DeCipio, and board members, thank you for having me here today. I'm extremely excited. I appreciate you putting your faith in me to be the project manager and the executive director for this project. This is going to be a great consolidation between these three communities. As the Chiefs already alluded to, we've spent a lot of time already in the last 2 months working towards developing a consolidation proposal, budget, and things associated with the project. So we will be back soon with proposals, outlines, requests for purchasing in the near future. At this point, we're really not ready to give any specifics as to how the project is going to move forward, because we're still deciding those decisions at this point. Thank you for having me here today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kim. And thank you, Julia. Okay, moving on, Administration Committee, Trustee Lautner.
Thank you, Mr. President. This evening I have 3 items to report on. First of all is regarding the National Night Out that was recently held on Tuesday, August 4th. The LaGrange Park Police Department, along with village officials, hosted the 2nd annual National Night Out program at the Memorial Park Bandshell. National Night Out is an opportunity for our residents and law enforcement to gather together in support of crime prevention. Over 500 residents were treated to entertainment by a magician, a canine demonstration by the Cook County Sheriff's Canine Unit, and mascot Sparky the Fire Dog, McGruff the Crime Dog, and Hamburger. Prizes, including bicycles, were given out in a free raffle. The police department would like to also thank all those who volunteered their time and/or made donations to this event. And as was recognized earlier by Trustee Casera, it was an excellent evening, and a lot of residents were in attendance. It was very much appreciated by everyone in attendance there. The next area is regarding the Save the Date. The village's annual Community Cleanup Day will be held on Thursday, October 15th. Mark your calendars. Residents will be permitted to dispose of an unlimited amount of refuse, excluding yard waste and brush, for a total of 4 refuse stickers. It's been a very popular program in the past, and look forward to that this year again. Sustainability Commission announces a new Green Spotlight program. Help the village learn about and recognize residents who have taken actions to become more sustainable. The village's Sustainability Commission has developed a new Green Spotlight program to honor residents who have taken steps toward being more green. Those recognized will receive a special stepping stone. The commission encourages residents to nominate others or themselves for their green initiatives. Nominations will be taken on an ongoing basis. The Sustainability Commission will evaluate them and make recommendations periodically to the village board. Considerations will include impact on greenhouse gas emissions, length of time of implementation, ability to generate the interest of residents, replicability, economy, and instructiveness. For more information on this program, visit the village website at www.lagrangepark.org. And that concludes my report from the administration area this evening, Mr. President.
Thank you, Trustee Lautner. Moving on in place, taking Trustee Zor's Committee Building and Zoning, Trustee Casera.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the Building and Zoning activity report to go through, and then I also have another item up for discussion and action. As requested for insertion in a village board meeting agenda packet, the following is a brief summary of building department activities for the month of July. Additional records and correspondence are kept within the department for your review if needed. 105 building permits were issued this past July compared to 117 issued in July of 2014. Year to date, the village has issued 35 less permits as of the same time last year. Estimated construction costs for the month are nearly 10 times what they were compared to July of last year. Permit fees collected are nearly 5 times what they were in July of last year. Most of this can be attributed to the issuance of the Nazareth Academy Addition permit. 191 inspections were conducted this past July, with 33 of those not approved. As of the end of July, 40 more inspections have been conducted year to date as compared to the same time last year. As noted, a permit was issued to Nazareth Academy construct addition. Plymouth Place has begun an extensive report. Next item. Discussion and action. On March 24th, 2015, the village board granted a temporary use permit for the community park district of LaGrange Park to install a temporary storage shed at Robert Hood Park. The purpose of the shed was to house equipment used for youth summer camps, as the shelter at Memorial Park that typically houses the equipment was being demolished as part of the planned Memorial Park improvements. The approved temporary use permit allowed the shed to remain in place from May 1st, 2015 through September 1st, 2015. Since the temporary use permit was granted, the Park District has demolished the shelter at Memorial Park and installed the temporary shed at Robin Hood Park. However, funding for the Memorial Park improvement, which is primarily being provided through a State of Illinois OSLOD grant, has been frozen by the governor. As a result, the Park District was unable to complete the improvements planned this year. As such, the Park District has submitted a new temporary use permit application requesting permission to leave the temporary shed in place for another year. The Park District is requesting the shed remain through September 1st, 2016. In addition, that this OSLOD funding be released and they will be able to complete the improvements to Memorial Park. Staff recommendation: staff recommends the approval for the temporary use permit for the Community Park District for installation of a shed in Robin Hood Park. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to approve a temporary use permit for the Community Park District of LaGrange Park to allow an existing temporary shed at Robin Hood Park to remain through September 1st, 2016.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion, trustee Kucera?
Thank you, Mr. President. The temporary shed, it's at the park. It's serving its purpose. I just think it's a shame that we're delaying our OSLOD funding for it. It makes sense, and I am in favor of it.
Trustee Messick?
I would concur. This was an unforeseen happening due to budgetary issues, and it's another temporary, but it benefits the village, and hopefully we won't need it after September 1st of next year.
Trustee Rocco?
I agree. Thank you.
Trustee Sheehan?
I agree, Mr. President.
Trustee Lautner?
Thank you, Mr. President. I have nothing to add. I would agree.
I would like to introduce the Executive Director of our Park District, Alex Breedis. Alex, do you have any comments that you'd like to make to the board?
No, just thank you very much.
We didn't vote yet, Alex. Only kidding.
I'm hoping that we do end up getting that OSLAD grant, and we can start construction sooner than later.
As Trustee Messick and Kucera both said, we hope that this time next year it will be ongoing and we'll see a new shelter. Thank you, Alex. Amanda, call the roll.
Trustee Messick?
Yes.
Yes.
Trustee Sheehan?
Yes.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
There you go. Thank you, Alex. We can't presume anything. Okay, engineering capital projects. Trustee Kucera again.
And thank you, Mr. President. I have 3 items to report this evening for the Engineering and Capital Project Summary Report for July of 2015. The first item, work is virtually complete on the Illinois Department of Transportation contract for Kemen Avenue resurfacing project from 31st Street to 26th Street. The only item remaining is to repair the electrical access handholds for the traffic signals at 31st Street. Once all of the approvals from IDOT for these repairs are received, the work can be performed and the installation of the replacement sidewalk completed. Second item, the repaving of Cleveland Avenue from 30th Street to 26th Street by G&A Paving was completed in June. Final landscape restoration has been initiated, but project completion may be postponed until early fall to await more favorable weather conditions. Third and final item. On July 6, 2015, the village received bids for the resurfacing of Pine Tree Lane and the portion of Finsbury Lane that was not part of the McNaughton development. 4 companies submitted bid proposals to the village, with G&A Paving, LLC being the low responsible bidder. The village awarded a contract to G&A Paving at the July 14th meeting. Since the village is utilizing motor fuel tax funds for this work, the Illinois Department of Transportation must review and approve all contract documents prior to the beginning of any work. The fully executed contract documents are at IDOT and expected back in mid-August. Work is expected to begin in late August with completion by the end of September. That concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Trustee Kucera. Public Safety Committee, Trustee Messick.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, the monthly reports for July of 2015, starting with the police. The total number of crimes reported continues to be very similar to last year, with 130 reported by July of 2014, compared to 133 being reported through July of this year. The overall police service and assistance activity is slightly lower than last year at this time, with 3,749 incidents reported through July of this year as compared to 4,200 last year. Traffic compliance and parking ticket enforcement are continuing the same pace as last year. As of July 2015, there have been 3,569 with 3,632 as of July of last year. It is noted the village sticker enforcement is not started for 2015. This will occur in September, ending the grace period. This will also bring the overall total of tickets issued to date above last year's enforcement. LaGrange Park Schools have presently begun the year for the 2015-16 session. Members of the police department, along with the assigned crossing guards, are around at each site to monitor the flow of pedestrian and vehicle traffic. In addition, the officers will continue to randomly visit schools during their patrol duties and will make every effort to walk and talk for safety reasons, along with keeping a positive, open line of communication for all staff and students. Note, officers will again be involved with the Adopt a Cop program from grades K through 8 starting in October of 2015. That concludes the police report. And now on to fire department. for July of 2015. EMS responses for the month, 149. There have been 1,017 year-to-date compared to 903 last year. Fire rescue incidents in July were 41. There were 277 year-to-date compared to 321 year-to-date in 2014. All non-transport vehicles such as fire apparatus, which contain basic life support EMS equipment, were inspected by the Loyola EMS system and the Illinois Department of Public Health. They subsequently passed their annual inspection and were relicensed. Personnel participated in the 4th of July parades in Riverside, Brookfield, and Lyons. Also in the early evening of the 4th, the fire department responded to assist Brookfield with an attic fire in the home on the 3200 block of Oak. Overnight on the 4th, they also responded to a garbage can on fire next to a garage in the 1200 block of Ostrander, which was most likely caused by firework debris. Fire prevention staff assisted with the setup of inspections at the St. Louis Summerfest. There was one emergency response to the fest for a person suffering from a heat-related injury. Fire prevention personnel assisted Loyola Medical Center employees with conducting the fire evacuation drill. EMS personnel also provided a CPR and AED class for a dental office in the village. And that concludes the report. And now we have one action item previously discussed. Purpose is based on the recommendation of the Traffic Safety and Engineering Committee, which held a meeting on June 10th of this year. Staff is seeking the board's approval for the temporary removal of residential permit parking only signs located in the 1000 block of Newberry, alley south of 31st to Garfield Avenue. On general background, on May 22nd, 2007, the village adopted ordinance number 846, which imposed restricted parking due to the YMCA being relocated from LaGrange to LaGrange Park. Residential permit parking only signs were installed along the 1000 block of Newberry, which restricted parking to residents only on Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 11 a.m., and 3 p.m. to 8 p.m., and on Saturdays, 6 to 11 a.m. Due to safety concerns raised by residents and business owners, staff around the area along the 1000 block of Newberry, the Traffic Safety and Engineering Committee met on June 10th, 2015 to discuss the potential removal of the residential permit parking only signs. The committee agreed that many things have changed since the adoption of the ordinance in 2006, including the YMCA requiring its staff to park 2 blocks away from the location, and also the addition of approximately 6 new parking spaces on the south side of the building. The YMCA has recognized the problems with parking in this area over the years and has shown due diligence in making changes to specifically address the issues. These changes include the following. 1, scheduling classes programs to reduce large amounts of people at one time, and the relocation of classes to a variety of other YMCA sites throughout the Chicagoland area, thereby decreasing the overall use of the facility. 2, the restriction to have staff park at least 2 blocks away from the YMCA. And 3, the change in all daycare services, now a 2-hour maximum. Also, the membership numbers have declined since moving to the LaGrange Park throughout the years. It is, however, still a great safety concern of many to have parents crossing 31st Street with small children in order to reach the YMCA building. It should be noted that currently, there are no restrictions for parking on Sundays, and there have been little to no complaints to the police department during this time about problems in the block. Further, recent parking data collected on the weekends during unrestricted hours show a substantial decline in street parking from the 2007 data. Upon the conclusion of its review, the TS&E committee recommended the removal of the signs. This is recommended by staff at this moment. So I will bring forth a motion to approve temporary removal of the residential permit parking only signs located along the 1000 block of Newberry, alley south of 31st Street to Garfield Avenue, and authorizing a 12-month parking traffic study to evaluate the impact of the removal of the signs.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Trustee Messick?
Thank you, Mr. President. First item, just in the interest of full disclosure, my daughter will be starting working for the YMCA on September 8th. She will not be working in that building due to them moving some of their programs out of the community to reduce parking structure. So just wanted to get that out in case anybody thought that might be an issue. We've had a lot of parking related issues come before this board. One of them is the safety, and safety is always a very important issue. We just had a well-debated, long meeting back, what was it, last year on Brainerd about one or two-sided, and the residents there were telling us one-sided was less safe. We've put in a lot of due diligence on this and studying it then and now, and like I said, it depends. It depends on who's looking at it. I found research to say both ways. In parking on both sides, for long periods, it can also be considered traffic calming, but that's just to point out how the information comes to us. We understanding congestion can be frustrating, and whether it's under the current conditions or were parking to be removed, the permits to be removed, that's something we have to stay on top of as a village. I think Y staff and everybody would have to stay on top of it. We have to consider the whole village. That's one thing. We all are trustees at large, and so we have to look at this in the larger context. And I don't know how to get more definitive information without a study. We addressed several of the issues and why it had to be 12 months. The chief assured us at the work session that was so they can study traffic during all the different seasons. And parking is, the fire and safety issues were largely addressed. I asked Chief Magus on that because it is a big concern if you can't get fire trucks down there. The chief said that they generally should be able to get fire trucks through there. Parking is a tough issue, and we have to balance that with the businesses and all of the other residents. The Y has been a good neighbor, and from what I've seen, so many issues brought forth seem to be. I would welcome any more background on it, but when we hear property values and some of these, I would like more definitive information. Some of it appears to be anecdotal, and I would like to see more background on it. With data from a study, though, we can reimpose or leave unrestricted, depending. If we have this data and it's determined that this is a safety issue, that the parking is a problem, we can always reimpose it. Without the data, it makes it harder to make that decision. And some of this, I know some of the comments we've heard about were about the Y themselves. The Y moved into our neighborhood. They've been, like I said, they've been a good neighbor, but the Y didn't ask for this restriction to be removed. It was the Traffic Safety Committee. So let's at least try and put that on the village and not the Y. As a bus route, Chief Romp, I would like to add, have we seen issues with buses come through? I know right now it's permit parking, but what's your take on that if there was more cars parked there?
Well, again, without knowing exactly, there is a bus route that goes through Garfield. There is no assumption to that. There's different areas for the buses route to be picking up their children and dropping them off. Our staff, just like in any of our drop-off pickup zones, are going to keep due diligence on that. It's part of the study program to see what's going on. At this point, it's not going to impose anything further because the buses are going down the route where some of the vehicles on Garfield are parked presently. So there could even be an instance where some of the vehicles could even be relocated to assist with that route traffic, depending. So again, it all depends on how the study comes into play, but at this point, I do not see any safety concern issues because of staff due diligence on this project, just as well with all our other school entities.
Thank you, Chief. And just one other question. As part of the evaluation, would we be able to, I know part of it's just going to be when you're on site, but the turning around in the driveway, if there is a lot of that in there as parking there, that they shouldn't be going into other people's driveways. Is that something we'll be able to monitor, you think?
Well, I think it will. I don't know without us being on hand 24 of it all, throughout all the hours being open for the services that are rendered on 31st to say exactly. But I think part of that, along with some of the education and the openness of communication we're going to have with residents in the area, just as well as we do again with our school areas, we're going to do the same due diligence of finding out from them if there's a reoccurrence at what time and what's going
Thank you very much. That's all for now, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple of additional questions in my mind and items for my thought this evening. And thank you, Trustee Messick. And I don't really think it's an inquisition against the why. It definitely has to do with some of the patrons that unfortunately don't want to obey all traffic laws, and unfortunately it does occur on every street everywhere. I just remember spending a number of years dropping my kids off at school, and the restrictions and regulations that were in place, and I probably remember a couple of discussions I had with some other drivers regarding those. And as a resident on Scottdale, which happens to be a great cut through from the Grange Road at 31st Street, I still do, in a very polite manner, Chief. But not to raise ill humor, because this is a very important decision. The Y is one of the businesses in the area, as well as a number of others. Safety is, I think, my number one concern whenever we sit up here and make a decision. And as Trustee Messick mentioned, we had great debate regarding some other traffic safety concerns in parking. Again, with none of those studies being conclusive, and from real estate values to other concerns regarding safety. The why. In addition to being a business in our town, it's an organization that gives back tremendously to this community as well as all the other surrounding communities in the area. I've served on the West Suburban Chamber of Commerce Board. I've been a member of the Grange Park. I have served on boards of other great not-for-profits in our community, such as Helping Hand, the Leader Shop, Aging Care, just to name a few of many others that serve the people in all of our communities. And the Y has always been a person, or they've always had people and been involved to make sure that we're fundraising and that those organizations are a pride in our community. So, reason for saying all that, the Y is a good neighbor, and they want to be a good neighbor, and they want to be a good business. I do understand the parking concerns on the street, but I think as we discussed in prior discussion during the work session, are we moving it from Newberry down to another block, down to the 900 block? Are we moving it to the 800 block? Are we moving it to others? And then again, from a safety standpoint, I think I need to take into account the safety of naturally the residents on Newberry, as well as people taking their young children to the Y and crossing 31st Street, dodging trains, traffic, other cars, and unfortunately some very poor drivers. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Trustee Casera. Trustee Lautner?
Thank you, Mr. President. After certainly discussing this in the work session and listening that evening to the residents' feedback and this evening and the data that's been provided to us, and Trustee Casera, I think, said it very well, that safety is the number one issue on the mind of this board, and I know the staff and the community. So with that in mind, I come back to what problem are we trying to address and get our arms around? And I think the tipping point, so to speak, or at least the catalyst behind this is concerns about the safety on 31st Street and what that's creating. I think all the residents that have spoken and have submitted correspondence have excellent points and perspectives about their property and the situation that they are living with. And I think the Y is a good neighbor. I think that's a type of business that we do like to have in our community and want to attract. So with all that considered, I think that a study is in order. I think that we definitely need to take a closer look at what can we do as a community, as a village, to improve the safety of the area on 31st Street and the surrounding areas. And quite frankly, my hesitation or reluctance would be to make any changes until we have a better view as to what issues might we need to change. It might very well come out that we do need to lift the restrictions on Newberry. I don't know. I don't know if it would come out that we need to have some sort of traffic monitor. Do we need better lighting? Do we need another, so I think that there's potentially several solutions that could improve the situations that could come out of this. So I definitely think that we need to invoke a study on improving the safety of that area. But I'm not prepared to suggest that we should make any changes until we have that data in hand.
Trustee Sheehan?
Thank you, Mr. President. This issue with the YMCA reminds me of growing up in Oak Park, and the YMCA in Oak Park, those of you not familiar with it, a couple blocks east of Harlem and north of Madison Street, and it's a lot larger than the building that we have here, but nonetheless the same result, that parking is always at a premium, and nothing has changed over there in 30, 40 years. People stop, drop off people wherever they can. Getting through to Side Street or getting through Marion Street is a challenge in itself. So in response to one of the residents' concerns, I have driven past there many times, and ideally on Sunday, I don't see many people in there. You can drive by and look in the window and see hardly anybody's on the treadmill or the elliptical or what have you. But thinking that if we lifted the ban on parking, that it would be open season on the residents of the 1000 block. And I'm siding with Trustee Lautner on this one, that without hard data, I'm not prepared to make any changes to lift it at this time, Mr. President.
Trustee Rocco?
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a couple questions. What was the one of the residents, Ms. Peterson, I think, mentioned about the YMCA violating the code? I wasn't sure what code. Do you know what code they were referring to, or
Julia?
has that been?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm not sure specifically which violation Ms. Peterson was speaking to, but I do have the comments that were submitted by her. Should be a,
No, Mrs. Peterson, we can't allow. Thank you. Go ahead, Julia. And unfortunately, if I let you, then I have to let other people speak. I am so sorry.
yeah, there may be some communication to the village regarding when they first came into LaGrange Park in 2007, and under the old zoning code that was in place there, they may have not met all of the zoning requirements. I don't know. We haven't looked at it at that time.
But I thought there was reference made that it continued to be in violation. Or maybe I misunderstood that maybe it was cleared up. But I was unclear.
Under the new code, it's not in violation.
It's currently not in violation.
Correct.
Okay, so it was in violation, and then
I have no idea. I don't recall when the Y was opened. I don't recall anybody asking me that question.
okay. So it's currently everything's under code. It's operating under code.
Well, without,
Without looking at it,
without
okay.
looking
It's
at
a
it,
permitted use in the district in which it's located.
it is absolutely an allowed use. It
Okay.
is, we did confirm that, but with regard to, specific, parking requirements, and landscaping requirements, all of those types of things, they would be legal non-conforming because they were there before the new zoning code went into place, which went into place in January 2011.
Okay. And regarding the parking, can there be, can part of the study include where you would have no parking signs, like you can't park in the driveway, you could have towing? Is there, because one of the issues was people would be parking and they take away part of the driveways, they cover the driveway, and that may becomes an issue. So is that something that can be addressed with,
It's not allowed right now.
So, and I appreciate that, because I mean, no one can. I mean, even, that, but I'm wondering if we were took it one step further and had signs, that actually, said will be enforced, or have towing. Your vehicle can be towed and engage,
We will be looking at fire hydrants, we will be looking at the driveways, we will be looking at the corner, we will be looking at everything as part of that study, without signage being imposed, just what the village ordinances are already in place for. So we will be looking at all that as part of the study, along with the total amount of vehicles on that roadway.
Okay, and then also regarding cars backing up in a driveway, I mean, that really isn't a violation. People can pull in a driveway and back up. Is there something that can be done so that it would prevent, can
We work with the YMCA if it's predominantly that portion of business usage, to educate them, to let their around. We don't want them going up into their private drive. That first turnstile, unfortunately, people do use that even in school zones, other areas, because
In
that's
the
next to
apron.
Parkway. Yes, the
That's-
apron usage is used for certain things, but I'm not saying it's going to be abused and should not.
Okay, could we go one step further and be proactive in making something where it's there's signs of violation to back on and pull in a driveway?
I don't know that it's a violation to.
I don't think it is. I wonder. We allow restrictive parking. Could we allow for that block restrictive, pulling into driveways? Is that something that would be?
Well, we would certainly recommend the placement of signs to very clearly demonstrate where would corner would be in violation. Those are more standardized signs that one would see in a community, and we have in other places in the village. I mean, we could discuss that. That's just not something typical that we have anywhere else in the village, is disallowing or making it illegal the turn in and 3-point turn out of a driveway apron, which is public right of way, technically speaking. I mean, could we make that a law? I don't know what we're trying to solve. We don't really have the data as to how frequent that's
That
taking
happens.
place. I don't know if we're overshooting the
That would be part of the
situation.
study, you're saying, and that would be.
We'd have to be able to collect data in order to know what solution is going to work. As a policy approach, we
Mhm.
have to define what the problem is, pull the data together, and then put together a solution that makes sense in terms of a policy that works to improve the safety in that area.
And is that part of the study? I know that in the response it said that that we're going to get the help from our engineering firm who has experience in doing these types of studies. So it's not a study that we're doing off the fly. But is there, in terms of the study, because that was one of the questions the resident was asking, do we have a plan, a study in place? And if so, does it include looking at the study of looking at the backing out of the aprons? How does that plan? Where's it at? I guess
The plan that we have in terms of counting data, tracking, and recording data is in development, but is largely set. We're going to be looking at 2 weeks of parking behaviors each month, and they will be randomized. So when we do that, we're not going to make that announcement to anybody ahead of time. We're going to be doing the parking counts. We will also conduct a speed study on the street. And the value of collecting that data in that way is that it's consistent with the way that we collected data on that street back when the law was, the parking restrictions were originally put in place. So we can compare the data that we collect over the next 12 months to the data that was in place for that 1 month after the YMCA opened. That's the value in collecting that data. So we know we're going to do it for 2 weeks a month. The days will be randomized, so we're not doing a solid week and then taking a week off and a solid week. We're picking random days that when you put them all together, you will come up with 2 Mondays, 2 Tuesdays, 2 Wednesdays, but they're going to be randomized. But with regard to is the pulling in to do a a reverse and a driveway, is that something that we're going to track or have the ability to track? I think it gets back to what Chief Rampa said, and which is that's really difficult to track. I think some of it will be self-reported by the residents. I think when we're out there doing the counts, we can observe to see what's happening. We fully intend on working with the YMCA to inform them that if approved, that the evaluation period will be going on. We plan to communicate with the YMCA about making sure that they're aware that there's no overnight parking. We don't allow for overnight parking from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. So the early bird, exercisers, don't have the ability to park on the street in those early morning hours, because we don't allow parking on any of our streets until 6 a.m. So they have to be informed that they will have to continue to park in the YMCA's parking spaces or the allowable parking spaces. We'll make sure that they understand that, really, we would appreciate the communication of your members not to turn around in any of the driveway aprons. That's a courtesy. We don't specifically have a law, but we can certainly inform them that is a preferred that not take place, and also make sure that folks understand the restrictions and what the law is with regard to fire hydrants and parking a certain distance from the corner. So these are types of educational pieces, notification pieces that we would work with the YMCA to make sure that their patrons, their members understood these before the evaluation period would begin. And if it is approved, we would begin the evaluation period on September 1st.
So another question, it goes to the tracking. How are we tracking? I know it's random, you said, but is it like physically there's a police officer out there tracking? So they could possibly track the driveway. I'm thinking,
If whatever they observe, they're going to track.
And who's
And duly
covering the
noted,
aprons
any of the infractions, there will be the possibility of written actual enforcement at that time. That will also be part of the tracking and part of the system. Everything that's done on that roadway, our officers, along with the count study, will be doing for enforcement purposes, as well as discussing with all the some of the residents in the area randomly, as well as some of the business owners randomly, to find out what is going on and how is everything working. So we're going to keep an open line of communication with all. The way as Julie indicated, the study would go roughly by speaking with Paul and some of his staff. It would be looking at like the second week example of 1 month. We might go Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The next time, the last week of that month, we might go Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. The next time we'll come back, we might go Monday, Wednesday, Sunday. So it's just going to be a basis of random selection so that we get the full picture after we look at 2 weeks worth each month on different various days for the whole usage of time between the allowance of time, primarily that the Y is open.
And I hear what you're saying, and that sounds, you're going in the focus of enforcement. The thing with this one, and I guess I'm just on this one because it sounds like everything else will be tracked, but the fact that the aprons really isn't something that's in violation if they pull up and back up, but I could see that being a real problem for the residents, even though it's not. So that's why I guess I almost want to bring a special focus to that what you said you'll be tracking, and also with the focus of enforcement, that if you see violations, you're going to be issuing tickets, but that would be part of the tracking, but also that include the tracking that necessarily wouldn't be enforcement because there's nothing to enforce because they aren't in violation of anything of pulling in the aprons, but it's something that I think that we should be looking at, that should be considered, because that could be, if it's so overused, as a resident on that block, that maybe that is a block where we would want to have some type of restriction after the study in a year from now.
Just to be clear, using driveway aprons is a we get it on community, we get it on forest, we get it on, oh, help me,
Any of the blocks
Parking.
around the schooling, because there's
Large
queue
buildings.
lines, there's drop-off pickup lines.
Park.
People pick up their children as they pick them up. It's that quick fix of understanding where they want to drive in, turn around, don't want to wait in line anymore. So it's all different areas of town that we deal with.
And maybe that's something that we should be looking at, because I do think there was a safety issue in terms of backing up, especially when it's congested, you know, during the school, when they're doing that. So to me, that's why that becomes, when someone was saying I think it was Debbie or came up who's talked about the, you know, the safety, had the studies backing up. I think that would be, to me, if there is parked cars and it's busy, someone backing up, there's more blind spots. It becomes, to me, more of a safety issue. That's why I guess I'm thinking we should be looking at that also, if we choose as a board to go forward with this. That was one of the as far as the cost of the study, someone was talking. I know the cost of the study. This is something that we're doing internal, and it's our own man hours, if I'm understood.
That's correct. And working with our own engineer.
Which is already a contract with. And one other I guess a couple of the points. Someone also mentioned about, you know, they didn't want to use the term deputizing, go so far as, but the city of Chicago having some, and I know this may be something you know, in advance after the study, but is that something to be considered, or I mean, it seems like it could open up a whole other can of worms, but I wasn't sure. Does the city of Chicago do something like that, or?
I'm not aware exactly.
In the city of Chicago, the city sold the parking meters to a third-party company many years ago. The meter maids that you see all over the city of Chicago are not employed by the city, nor are they employed by the police department. They're employed by a private company, and all the revenue from those parking meters goes to that company.
So that's what that was being referred to. There's not like a.
Illinois law covers the appointment of auxiliary police officers, but they can only be used in traffic situations, civil disorder, and extreme emergencies. We cannot deputize police officers for parking and traffic. And it should be pointed out also that the village does deputize some auxiliary police officers, but they go through a rather rigorous training process. And right now, we have all the auxiliary police officers that we need.
Thank you. I guess this is my question too, and if I could open it up, because I just, Trustee Lautner, you referred to that you needed more data before agreeing to this study. I guess I'm unclear as to what data and also Trustee Sheehan, what data are you looking for to see what I'm missing?
Right. But what I'm looking for is the results of a study. I would be looking for some of the types of things that Chief Rampa referred to, that would be analyzing what kind of traffic flows, what kind of parking issues that we're running into, as well as including what we're seeing on 31st Street and what options there might be for addressing the safety concerns. So data, you know, as a generic term, it's the outcome of some of the things that they already talked about that they would plan to do. So I would support all of that, but to include options for improving the safety for 31st Street as well. And again, does that mean that there would be the flashing lights similar to the LT South campus that's recently been installed on, in that area of LaGrange? Does it mean that there needs to be a traffic guard at certain times, at high volume times? Does it mean that there needs to be a restriction of 2-hour parking only within the allowed times? All I'm saying is that I think that needs to be expanded to receive the results of some additional ideas for addressing primarily the specific issue of 31st Street and what options there might be for improving that safety and the safety in that area, inclusive of Newberry and the surrounding area. So that's what I would be looking for prior to making any changes.
I think I'm kind of getting it, but I'm also thinking the only way we can get the answer is to do this study. I'm just trying to figure out. It's like it's a chicken or the egg. I'm trying to get what other things we should be doing. It's almost like we need to do this study, and the question is, should we be even considering doing the study? And I look at from what the Traffic and Safety Committee, Traffic Safety and Engineering Committee looked at, and that this counts, it actually is less, there are less counts than there were in 2007. That there are dramatic changes that indicate for us to revisit this issue, and that the impetus was the safety issue of regarding the 31st Street crossing. I understand what the one resident said about they could easily walk to Kenman, but the reality is if this is what's happening and that becomes a safety issue, that they are crossing, north at, Newbury and crossing 31st Street, and that's something that we then need to look at and address, that in fact may be the reality. So to me, it seems like we need to do the study. It seems like it's indicated because of the fact that there has been a reduced number of cars that park on Newbury from that were, in the unrestricted times than that were in 2007, so that the whole dynamics may have changed. About as far as whether they were on according to the code or not, it sounds like they may be under code. I'd be curious if they're still not, if they're in violation of some code. From what I see, that YMCA has been a good neighbor. 40% of the people who use it are users of Grange Park. So that is, it's a big portion of it. That the other businesses in the community like the YMCA there because it attracts families and attracts people to bring, people to take a look and see that there's other businesses on 31st Street along with the YMCA. So there's reasons that I think we do need to look at this. This is a study. In my opinion, I can see that it's at this point indicated, and I'm taking the recommendation of the Traffic and Safety and Engineering Committee along with the staff. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Trustee Rocco. Okay, I have a couple comments that I'd like to make. First of all, I was involved in the inception of the parking ban, and at the time we felt it was a good idea. The YMCA had come in, we weren't sure on how the traffic was going to go, and we were told it was a 5-year plan. Things have changed since then. Now the Y's a neighbor, they're gonna be here for a while. Naz is gonna be here for a while. Ace Hardware is gonna be here for a while. The Grove is gonna be here for a while. Our businesses are gonna be here for a while. I agree with my colleagues, the Y's a good neighbor. They have family programs, and Karen, thank you for all that you do. But I am concerned about the residents. I'm concerned about safety, as my fellow trustees are, and we do care about the safety and the welfare of our residents. However, we have to share the burden here. And I'm not saying we lift the ban entirely, and I'll talk further on this. In other areas of our village, we have parking on one side of the street. That could be an option. But, we have to realize that, I live on the 1000 block. I don't live by the business district. If I did, I'd probably be out there with you. However, my home's by a business district. Now, what do we do with the cars? The cars by Ace Hardware park on the street. There's been no problems there at this point. But say we ban parking by Ace Hardware, where do those cars go? They go to our neighbors' homes on the following streets. And I'm not saying they should take the burden either. But it should be equalized, and we should all take the burden of having good businesses in our community. We don't have a parking garage. We don't have the ability to put up a parking garage. We're maxed out in land use. We did purchase a home when we were able to do it, to put a parking lot in. We're doing our best here. But those cars are going to go somewhere. You're going to push them down to the 900, 800 and have no parking on the 1000 block? I'm not sure that's quite fair. We do it on Edgewood. We have parking bans there on one side during games and during school. And I think what's fair to our whole community should be fair to everybody in our community. After listening to my colleagues, I'll say a couple other things. First, the YMCA, when they first came in my estimation at the time, and we had a good village manager, and we had a great police chief, and we had great staff. They were not brought in here illegally. They didn't go against any codes. If there were parking restrictions that they were going against that were in our code, it would have been brought to our attention, and we would have done something about it. They were able to lease property from a gentleman that owns it, and they put their business there, and they do have good programs now. Now, the traffic is an issue. It's an issue on Beach. It's an issue on Edgewood. It's an issue on Community. All I'm trying to do is equalize it so that we're all being treated the same way. So if we have parking on one side of the street, it's gonna be pushed somewhere else, the other cars. And is that fair? I mean, I don't know if I agree with, you know, I talked to the chief about this, and we have to do a study. And you can't do a study the way it is now because the cars are gonna not be there. So how do we know what's gonna happen? We have to make a change. You know, maybe my suggestion would be to institute or talk about maybe doing one side of the street or a particular situation that we have consistency throughout the community and see how that works for a while we do the study. So I guess what I'm saying is I'd like to vote against this at this point. I want to thank all, you know, the chief has done a great job, staff has done a great job, but I'm not sure lifting the ban at this point is going to give us the numbers that we want. But again, we're trying to be fair across the community, and by lifting the ban there, we're not going to be fair to you guys. But I think you guys should take part of the burden. It's where we live. It's what we have next door to us. And I think if maybe we did some modification of it and then did the study in conjunction with that, to appease everyone and be fair to everyone, I think it would work. I don't agree with not doing anything and doing a study because that's not going to give us any valuable information. So it would be my suggestion, maybe, since this is such an important topic to all of us, first of all, I want to say safety and health and awareness of all our community is utmost of this board. I don't want anybody to think that we're here pro-business, that we want the Y here no matter at the expense of our residents. That is not true. We care about each and every one of our residents. We have buses going down every street. We have congestion on every street. We have people going in and out of driveways in every street to turn around. We're not unique down there. It's happening throughout our community. So we need to be fair and distribute the, I don't want to say wealth because it's not wealth, but the business is certainly beneficial to us. But we want to distribute the concern across everybody as we do everywhere else in our community. So I would like to see us maybe step back and have the chief reevaluate, see if there's anything we can do in the interim to change what's down there, to be more consistent what we do throughout the community, and then see if it works. But I think change is inevitable. I think we need to do that. The Y is here to stay. Ace Hardware is here to stay. Nazareth is here to stay. We have to deal with it, and it's a tough thing on us to do it. All I'm concerned about is being fair and equitable throughout our community. Amanda, call the roll.
Trustee Messick?
Yes.
Trustee Rocco?
Yes.
Trustee Sheehan?
No.
Trustee Casera?
Yes.
Trustee Lautner?
No.
Motion passes 3-2.
No, it doesn't. I vote no.
I don't believe the president gets to vote in a 3-2.
To change,
It's not a tie.
it's 3-2. Correct? It's 3-2. I can change the course of a vote
Can create a tie or.
or change the course of a vote.
Okay.
Well, let's look it up. I mean, I think the
No,
president can.
I think that's in the Illinois handbook.
It's my understanding that the president can change the vote, either tie it or change it. And I'll stand by that, unless somebody tells me differently. And while we're looking that up, let me just say a couple other words here. Our police department is the best police department. Our fire department's the best fire department. This was not initiated by anyone in particular, any group in particular. It's a concern. I want to commend our chiefs and the amount of time they put in. And this is very time-consuming, guys. This takes a lot of staff time. And our chief has done a tremendous job getting us to this point. And he will carry us forward. So please, all due respect to every one of our officers, you think, well, they don't respond to my calls. They do respond to our calls. I mean, if you look at the call numbers from last year, it's around 74% of the parking was coming from 10,000 block of Newberry. Over 200 calls. Now, I don't want to minimize it because some of them were emergency calls probably. But we have to be practical here. We have to do something different. And our chief will lead us down that path. I just think that maybe we can, maybe make a different approach here and get us a little bit further along. We need to take a recess. We're going to take a 5-minute recess so we can go through this. I do have the ability to vote, and my suggestion, I'm going to vote now, and my suggestion is to remand it back to the staff and chief and see if there's, in the interim of doing the study, if there's an alternative way to make it feasible for both parties to work in conjunction and not lift the ban entirely, but maybe restrict parking on one side and see how that goes, or whatever options we have available to us. But I think some alternative needs to be looked at. Moving on. Trustee Messick, is that it?
That concludes Public Works, Public Safety, I'm sorry, Mr.
Okay,
President.
now we'll move to Public Works. Trustee Sheehan?
Thank you, Mr. President. The following is the monthly report, Public Works Department for July 2015. Brush pickup took place the first full week in July. 65 hours were spent making several passes through town, removing approximately 208 yards of brush from the parkway. 17 trees, which were diseased with the emerald ash borer, were removed from the village parkway during 89 hours. 123 hours were spent on the maintenance of public works equipment and vehicles. 64 hours were spent filling potholes with 20 tons of UPM. 130 hours were spent repairing street from previous main breaks, main break repairs, and approximately usually 73 tons of UPM. 186 hours were spent on building and grounds maintenance along the Village Hall, Public Works Facility, and along 31st Street. The street sweeper cleaned over 197 miles of street during 136 hours and picked up 61 yards of debris. Barricades were delivered for 4 block parties during the month. Various work orders were completed with crews removing roadkill, tree trimming, individual brush pickup, parkway repairs, cleaning sewer, catch basins, and making sign repairs. Various repairs and preventive maintenance were performed on Public Works vehicles, police vehicles, and fire vehicle equipment. Water Department operation, over 287 day shift hours and 37 overtime man hours during the month of July were spent on maintenance and repairs of sewer and water mains. 37,360,000 gallons of water was purchased from the Brookfield North Riverside Water Commission. 1,279 water meters were read in Section 1. 52 monthly accounts and 40 final meter readings were taken. Various inspections, appointments, and service calls were performed. 15 water, bacterial, and stage 2 quarterly samples were taken and all samples passed. 187 utility locations were identified prior to excavations. 1 water main was repaired. 2 Buffalo box repairs were also made. That concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Trustee Sheehan. Finance Committee, Trustee Rocco?
Thank you, Mr. President. We are 25% through our fiscal year. The highlights are the fiscal year to date, general fund revenue is at 26% of the annual budget and approximately $96,000 greater than last year. Property tax receipts are about $76,000 lower than last year at this time due to the timing of collections sent by the county. Natural gas tax receipts have dropped about 55% from last year. Prior receipts were significantly higher due to the extremely cold weather we had at the end of 2014 winter. Monthly telecommunication tax receipts are about 5% lower than last year, indicating that the declining trend in this revenue source is continuing. Permit revenue jumped in July due to single large permit is now 37% above last year. Intergovernmental revenue is 20% greater than last year due to increased receipts from state shared revenues including income tax, personal property replacement tax, and use tax. The Illinois Department of Revenue has reported that the increase in income tax is likely partially due to over withholding by employers who did not adjust to the state tax rate from 5% to 3.75%. This would result in the lower income tax receipts later in the year. Changes for services are about $57,000 higher than last year due to both increased ambulance trips and timing of collections. Fine revenue is about 15% higher than the prior year due to the police department's use of the state's local debt recovery program to collect unpaid tickets. The total general fund expenditures are within expectations at 21% of the annual budget and $366,000 lower than last year. Last year's budget included a $1.2 million transfer of the capital projects fund, compared to $200,000 this year. Excluding the difference in the capital transfer, the total fiscal year-to-date expenditures are about $20,000 below last year. And as you'll see, we've got a further detailed reports that are attached to our agenda. That concludes the report, and there are no agenda items. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Trustee Rocco. Other reports, Village Clerk?
I have nothing to report, Mr. President.
We do have a village treasurer's report, don't we?
There is a village treasurer's cash report included.
Any comments, any questions for our village / treasurer / finance director / Okay, thank you. Our village engineer?
No report, Mr. President.
Our village attorney?
No report, Mr. President.
Motion to approve committee and collectors reports as presented.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I have one item, and it's a action item. The village currently has one vacancy on the Youth Commission. Over the summer months, the village solicited for new members and received one application within the time limit. Based on an interview with staff, community involvement, interest in serving on the Youth Commission, the village recommends that the following candidate to serve on the commission for a 2-year term. Maria Clark, a sophomore at Lyons Township High School. I'd like a trustee to make the motion, please.
I move we appoint new member Amaria Clark and the reappointment of seniors Nicholas Fuentes, Alex Scotty, and Laura McAllister for 1-year terms on the Youth Commission to expire on September 1st, 2016.
A motion and a second.
Second.
Amanda, call the roll.
Trustee Messick?
Yes.
Trustee Rocco?
Yes.
Trustee Sheehan?
Yes.
Trustee Casera?
Yes.
Trustee Lautner?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Amanda. Public participation in non-agenda related items. Would anyone care to address the board?
Good evening. Bill Lampert, 1000 Newberry. Quick question. I actually noticed a new light fixture at Harding and Newberry, LED fixture. Didn't know if the village was curious if there was a plan in place that we could, as president, take a look at for retrofitting the old, what are those light fixtures are.
Thank you, Mr. Lampert. Any other questions? Any other comments for the board? Any new business? Julie, we're not moving. We don't have any executive session. We have a motion from a trustee, Trustee Messick. Move into executive session.
Yes, I move that we move into executive session to discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, disciplines, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body according to 5 ILCS 120/2C1, not to return to open session until our work session on September 8th.
Second.
Motion is second. Amanda, call the roll.
Trustee Messick?
Yes.
Trustee Rocco?
Yes.
Trustee Sheehan?
Yes.
Trustee Casera?
Yes.
Trustee Lautner?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
And we'll stay down there.
Okay.